Cossacks, how rebels built a state. Imagine a land where kings vanish without heirs, where pagan dukes smash Mongol juggernauts, where peasants flee their lords to live free on the wild frontier, and where ragtag misfits transform into nation builders. You'll see kings toppled, magnates crushed, cities sacked, and unlikely alliances formed. You'll laugh at the Cossacks' audacity, gasp at their rebellions, and marvel at how these fugitives of the steppe became the architects of the first modern Ukrainian state. So buckle up, because by the end of this saga, you'll understand not just how the Cossacks rose, but why their story still echoes across Eastern Europe today. Picture it, the year 1323. The kingdom of Ruthenia is ruled by two brother kings, Andrew and Lev VI. Think of them as the medieval version of a buddy cop duo, except instead of chasing criminals, they're fending off Mongols. Unfortunately, their season finale comes early. Both brothers are killed fighting Uzbek Khan of the Golden Horde. No heirs, no backup plan. The Rurikid bloodline fizzles out like a candle in the wind, and Ruthenia is left leaderless. To Poland and Lithuania, lurking like opportunistic neighbors ready to snatch your lawn furniture the moment you move out. They partition Ruthenia, slicing it neatly along Galicia and Volhynia. It's the medieval equivalent of a real estate deal gone wrong. Surprisingly, it's Lithuania, not Poland, that flexes hardest in Ukraine at first. Under Grand Duke Gediminas, Lithuania is the last pagan holdout in Europe, basically the cool kid who refuses to join the mainstream religion club. Gediminas builds a military juggernaut, smacks the Mongols around, and annexes huge swaths of Ukraine, including Kiev. Imagine the shock, the Mongols who seemed invincible, suddenly getting dunked on by a pagan duke. By the early 1400s, nearly all Russia's lands are under Polish or Lithuanian control. At first, this isn't terrible. Lithuania rules lightly, like a landlord who only occasionally checks in. But then comes the plot twist. In 1385, Grand Duke Jogaila marries Queen Jadwiga of Poland. It's a union that changes everything. Jogaila converts to Catholicism to seal the deal, and suddenly Orthodox Christianity in Ukraine starts losing ground. Paganism is gone, Catholicism is in, and Orthodox elites feel the squeeze. Fast forward to 1569, the Union of Lublin merges Poland and Lithuania into one megastate, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Ruthenian lands are absorbed into Poland's administration, and the pressure to Polonize ramps up. Language, culture, religion, all nudge toward Polish Catholic norms. For the Orthodox Rus nobility, this is like being told to swap your entire identity for a new wardrobe you didn't order. Meanwhile, grain exports are booming. Polish magnates swoop in, gobbling up land and creating massive estates. The once free peasants are shackled into serfdom, forced to toil for Catholic lords. Western Ukraine becomes cosmopolitan and urbanized, while the East turns into a dangerous frontier thanks to the Crimean Khanate's annual slave raids. Loving the story? Be generous. Hit subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss the next chapter. Lithuania tries to fortify the border with forts manned by mercenaries, but these garrisons go rogue, evolving into autonomous military communities. Polish nobles lure peasants to settle the steppe with promises of freedom, but when they try to reimpose serfdom, the peasants say no thanks and flee further east. Thus begins the great escape valve of Ukrainian society. Runaway peasants, indebted nobles, defrocked priests all band together in the wild frontier. They abandon farming, arm themselves, and live free as hunters, brigands, and warriors. This ragtag society becomes the Cossacks. Cossackdom isn't a nation or ethnicity. It's a lifestyle. Freedom is the core value. They roam the steppes in covered wagons, ready to form defensive squares at a moment's notice. They fight as infantry with deadly rifles, raid Tatar and Ottoman settlements by sea, and live like medieval action heroes. Think Mad Max, but with horses and Orthodox prayers. Though the Cossacks spent much of their time roaming the wild steppes like wolves on horseback, eventually they began to settle. And oh, what settlements they built. Bustling trade hubs rose from the dust, attracting Muscovites, Persians, Greeks, Armenians, and Jews, each eager to barter for the spoils of Cossack raids. Gold, jewelry, slaves, livestock. These entrepôts grew fabulously wealthy, yet the Cossacks themselves remained curiously egalitarian. According to legend, their compounds were so communal that doors were left unlocked, wealth was shared, and anyone could stroll into a neighbor's home without fear. Though, let's be honest, if you tried to pinch a loaf of bread, you'd probably get a musket butt to the ribs. Forget kings and crowns. The Cossacks had their own system. Each brotherhood was led by a hetman or ataman, but decisions were made in the Rada, a military council where every voice counted. Hetmans were elected, could be removed, and sometimes even executed if they betrayed the collective. This democracy had many roots. Some say it came from Turkic neighbors, others claim it was born from hatred of Polish feudal chains. Still others trace it back to the old customs of Kievan Rus. Whatever the source, the result was a society where freedom was sacred and authority was always on a short leash. Though multi-ethnic at first, with Polish-speaking Catholic hetmans, over time the Cossacks rallied around the Ruthenian language and Orthodox Christianity. These became the symbolic banners of their martial culture. To be a Cossack was not just to fight, it was to defend the faith and speak the tongue of the steppe-born Rus. By the 16th century, Eastern Europe was a battlefield of titans, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, a Catholic powerhouse stretching across vast lands, the Ottoman Empire, with its vassal, the Crimean Khanate, raiding Ukraine for slaves, the Muscovites, who in 1480 threw off Mongol rule, annexed Chernihiv and Smolensk, and under Ivan the Terrible founded the Tsardom of Russia. And smack dab in the middle of this chaos? The Cossacks. Nestled between sultans, khans, tsars, and kings, they thrived like wolves among lions. The Polish crown had a problem. The Cossacks lived on their lands, openly defiant of feudal authority. Yet they were also extremely useful as a buffer against Tatar raids. What to do? Enter King Stefan Batory in the 1570s. His solution? The Cossack registry system, a plan to incorporate them into the royal army. Brilliant, right? Wrong. The Polish government rarely paid the Cossacks their promised salaries. The Cossacks refused to fight for causes not their own. Only a small minority were registered, leaving the majority branded as illegal troublemakers. Instead of taming the Cossacks, Poland only stoked their resentment. Tensions rose like storm clouds over the steppe. In 1590, Hetman Krzysztof Kaczyński, a registered Cossack with estates in eastern Ukraine, clashed with the mighty Ostrogskis, the Palatines of Kiev. The Ostrogskis tried to confiscate his lands, and Kaczyński responded the only way a Cossack knows how, with fire and blood. His uprising shook the land, but by 1593 it was crushed, with the ironic help of another Cossack band led by Hetman Severin Nalivaiko. But oh, how quickly loyalty turns to rebellion. Within a year, Nalivaiko himself went rogue, allied with the unregistered Cossacks, and launched his own rebellion against both the Ostrogskis and the Polish crown. By 1596, his revolt too was crushed, leaving eastern Ukraine desolated. Yet neither Poles nor Ruthenian magnates gained much. The Cossacks remained untamed, prowling the plains beyond effective jurisdiction. At the dawn of the 17th century, the Cossacks were essentially a law unto themselves. Sometimes they aided Poland, like in 1618, when 20,000 Cossacks under Hetman Petro Konashevich Sahaydachny joined the Polish army in a march on Moscow during Russia's time of troubles. The result? Poland gained land at Russia's expense. Other times they raided, rebelled, or simply ignored orders. The Cossacks were the ultimate wild card, sometimes saviors, sometimes scourge, always unpredictable. The Cossacks, never ones to sit quietly, decided to raid Kaffa, the Crimean Khanate's main slave-trading hub. And oh boy did they. They stormed the city, smashed its defenses, and freed thousands of slaves. Heroic? Yes. Reckless? Absolutely. Because this little stunt enraged none other than Sultan Osman II of the Ottoman Empire. The Sultan gathered a 120,000-man army. That's right, an ocean of soldiers, and marched into the Polish Commonwealth in 1621. But at the Battle of Khotin, the Cossacks and Polish forces stood shoulder to shoulder. For a month they fought, and somehow, against all odds, they stopped the Ottoman tide. Lesson learned? The Cossacks were excellent at solving problems they themselves created. But the Cossacks weren't done causing chaos. In 1625, 1630, 1637, and 1638, rebellions flared up like wildfire. Why? Because the Polish crown kept pushing Polonization, forcing Catholic culture, suppressing the Ruthenian Orthodox Church, and treating the Cossacks like unruly peasants. Each rebellion was crushed. But here's the kicker. The Cossacks were too useful to destroy. They guarded the frontier against Tatars and too stubborn to submit. Poland's failure to eliminate them would prove its undoing. The storm was brewing. Enter Bohdan Khmelnytsky, a loyal Cossack officer, minor landholder, and servant of the Polish crown. Until, surprise, a Polish magnate tried to confiscate his lands. When Bohdan protested, he was thrown in prison. But Bohdan escaped. Furious, betrayed, and disillusioned, he galloped straight to the Zaporozhian Sich, the wild fortress of unregistered Cossacks. There, he riled them up with fiery speeches. The freebooters elected him ataman, and the insurrection was on. Khmelnytsky knew he needed allies. So he turned to the Crimean Khan, the Cossacks' traditional enemy. And guess what? The Khan agreed. He sent 4,000 Nogai horse archers to join Bohdan's cause. Together, Cossack infantry and Tatar cavalry crushed the Poles at Zhovty Vody and Korsun. The Polish army was shattered, and 6,000 registered Cossacks defected to Bohdan's side. The rebellion was now a full-blown war. The victories sparked a social explosion. Across Ukraine, Orthodox peasants rose up against their Polish overlords. Villages burned, nobles were lynched, vendettas ran wild. But the fury didn't stop there. Tragically, 14,000 to 20,000 Jews were massacred in brutal pogroms, blamed for collaborating with Polish elites. It was a dark, bloody chapter in the uprising, showing how rebellion unleashed uncontrollable violence across society. By autumn, Bohdan's army stormed west as far as Lviv. In December, he entered Kiev, the ancient cradle of Rus. There, the Orthodox Metropolitan declared him prince, blessing his war as a holy crusade against Catholic oppression. Khmelnytsky declared himself heir to Vladimir and Yaroslav, master of Kievan Rus lands. The ragtag fugitives of the steppe had become nation-builders. In summer 1649, Khmelnytsky's Cossacks and Crimean Tatars crushed the Polish army at Zborov. The war was effectively over. Out of the ashes rose the Cossack hetmanate, the first independent, distinctively Ukrainian state of the early modern era. The Cossacks had done the impossible. From fugitives and misfits, they forged a nation. But freedom is one thing, keeping it is another. Ukraine now stood between the vengeful Poles eager for revenge, the Ottoman sultans with their mighty hosts, and most dangerously the Tsars of Moscow, whose hunger for expansion knew no bounds. The hetmanate was born in fire, but its survival would demand even greater struggles ahead. Thus ends this chapter. The Cossacks, once wild raiders of the steppe, had become the architects of a new Ukrainian identity. Their sabers carved not just enemies, but history itself. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe for more epic history adventures. Every follow helps build and grow this channel. See you in the next one.